Hi there guys, today we're going to be working on worksheet number 2 on isometric shapes, and we're working with cylindrical shapes. If you can see from number 1 and number 2, we have different curves being used from the actual isometric circles, and number 3 we have the full isometric circle being used, and we are joining the two isometric circles to form one cylinder. I've also included a full construction of an isometric cube with all the isometric circle constructions. Right, so all I'm going to expect from you today is to physically project all these lines down and these across to find your necessary isometric cube in which you're going to be drawing this shape. Right, I've selected the line tool in SolidWorks, and I have selected a layer 2, which I'm going to just rename to construction lines. And the shade I'm using, right, the line tool. Simply orthographically projecting these down will give me accurate lines to work with. And projecting these lines across will simply give me the height of the cube I'm going to be drawing my shape in. Right, so if I zoom in on that fact there, I'll now be able to set my angled lines at 30 degrees. We know that our angled lines have to be at 30 degrees for it to be an isometric line. Just making sure I'm getting the right points. And I'm going to use a copy tool so that I could copy this line. Now in your instance, you'll be using your 30-degree set square to find these lines, and you will obviously just simply project from the right hand side to the left and from the top down to be able to find the necessary points. If you're not very sure, you could always go back on the video, press pause every time you are unsure, and try and work it out from there. Alright, so now that I have my isometric square, I'll be able to construct my isometric circles. As we know, we're going to be going from the obtuse angle to opposite side, or the center of the opposite side. Obtuse to opposite center, and again from the opposite angle, or the obtuse angle, obtuse to opposite center, obtuse to opposite center. So we have to recognize the fact that we have an isometric circle, or portions of an isometric circle, on the top face and potentially on the bottom face. We don't work with any of the isometric circle construction or parts of an isometric circle on the right hand face or the left hand face. In this case here, I'm going to be going onto my arc tool. I'm going to be clicking on the obtuse angle. I'm going to be opening up to the parameter, and I'm going to scribe my arc. Let me zoom in on this here for you. I'm going to change this line type to a final line type, just so we can recognize the fact that this arc over here is in fact this arc over here. Okay, I'm going to go click on my arc tool again, go to the obtuse angle, open it up to the parameter, and I'm scribing my arc needed. Yet again, I have to change the line type. And we also recognize that this line over here is the same as this line over here. Now it's quite simple. We'll be using the actual square, the isometric square, to continue drawing this shape. I need the final line. I'm going to go from where I ended off to the corner, from the corner to the arc drawn. I'm going to zoom in over here just to see where I ended off. Over there. Now this should have been back here. Right, so that is a mistake. Just realize that that has to go from one V to the other end of the V. When I say V, I mean from obtuse to opposite center. This V over here. Your arc should extend from there to there. Alright. We're going to continue drawing lines to the corner from the arc. They're not showing up because in SolidWorks there's already a line there, so I'm going to delete those two lines just so that you're not confused. Right, now the top surface is done. That surface over there is the top surface of number 1, and we simply have to recognize that at the bottom we are using the exact same curve as this one here. So this will mean that I'll have to find an isometric construction for an isometric circle. In this case I'm going to be using my isometric lines, which you would be using a 30-degree set square. Just convert that to a construction line. And because it's a cube, you'll notice that it actually meets up exactly in the middle along with all the other points there. We're going to go ahead and construct an isometric circle in construction line from the obtuse angle to the opposite center. I prefer it if you reconstruct the entire isometric circle rather than projecting the points down from the top. Right, I've got my first V. I go to the opposite side, the opposite obtuse angle, obtuse to opposite center, obtuse to opposite center, and now I'll be using my intersection points to be able to describe my arcs. Right, in this case here, I simply do need to only get to the actual obtuse angle. I didn't actually need to construct the entire isometric circle or show all constructions. Let's quickly, there we go. Because theoretically I do not use any of the isometric circles arcs on the sides, so I didn't really need to find these intersection points. is change this line type. You'll see that this fact over here will change as we go along to 2 and 3. Okay, so I'm going to continue drawing this line, final line. That one joins the top. This point to the corner. That line joins the top. Okay, yet again, SolidWorks has a construction line that is masking the final line. I'm just going to delete those and the final line will show up. And there we have it. Right, so we've successfully completed number 1. Let's move on to number 2. Number 2 looks a little bit different. We'll realize that we are actually using one of the corners over here like we have over here. We are drawing an isometric circle on a different face, but on the opposite side of this corner over here, we are actually using one of the isometric curves rather than cornering it off. I already have the isometric construction of my isometric cube and all the isometric circle constructions inside. Please note that I only have an isometric circle on this left hand face and on the right hand face in the back, not on this face over here or this face over here. I'm going to start constructing my isometric circle in this one by clicking onto the arc tool. I'm going to go to the obtuse angle, from obtuse to opposite center. I'm going to scribe my arc. And I'm also going to be needing this intersection point being used to the parameter sometimes a little bit tricky with SolidWorks trying to find. There we go. Right, and one more arc for the use of through the use of the arc tool. There we go. Right, it's very simple. Just realize that you do need to construct the isometric circle. There's obviously this arc over here that we're not going to be using as we are looking at number 2. There are actual straight lines to form a corner, and I'm going to be using my line tool to find that. From the arc to the corner, from the corner back to the arc. Right, there are isometric lines there already, so I'm going to simply delete them to show up. Oh, there's a problem. I'm glad this has happened so that you guys can see that everything doesn't always go according to plan. Let's try and draw this line again. This line here. Down to the arc. Brilliant. There's another line masking that one. I'll delete it. Alright. So these are joining properly. Right, so our first face is done. The hardest work is done. And everything that you see that is simply drawn in final line, we can simply go ahead and draw in final line. These are straight lines. So I would like to include those straight lines in my drawing, but first I'm going to be drawing or finding my isometric square in construction on the back end of this shape. So I'm going to go back to my isometric or my concentric arc, my arc tool. I'm going to go and choose my construction line. And I'm going to go ahead and construct my isometric circle on the back. Please make sure that you use the correct intersection points. I'm going to run through that slightly. From obtuse to opposite center, obtuse to opposite center, those are the two V's that I'm going to be using. And if I go to the opposite obtuse angle, I have that obtuse to opposite center obtuse to opposite center. Excuse me, it'll be this one here. So I'm going to be ending off with these intersection points here. That one there, and that one there. Right, let's go back to the arc tool. I'm simply going to be constructing my isometric circle because I'm not too sure which portion of my circle I'm going to be using. So I'm going to just construct the entire circle. Alright, now that I've constructed that isometric circle, please take note that when we are joining two isometric circles, we are going to obviously be forming a cylindrical shape. And we do this because it's obviously going to make sense, and we do it using the construction lines created. The longest line we've created over here, this one, and this one, cuts our arc at that point over there, and cuts the back arc at that point over there. So we're simply going to be drawing a line using the line tool from this point all the way back to the back isometric circle. Let's change this line to a final line. There we go. We can see it's starting to take shape now. We simply want to draw a nice solid line from this corner to that corner. I'm going to delete those masked areas. I also have a line going from this corner over here to that point there. And I also have a portion of my arc that I'm going to be using. Please take note, my entire arc extends right behind the shape. I'd like to only use the portion that I can see, which will obviously be from this point here to this point here. You're not going to be drawing the entire arc in solid or final line. I'm going to use my trim tool and just trim this extra portion away. Go back to my arc tool. In fact, I could just click on this line and just change the line type. Here we go. Right, we're almost there. One more thing that we need to do. We need to find which portion of this arc over here is going to be used, and obviously the line that's going to be joining the front face to the back face to form the cylindrical shape. Yet again, I'm joining the two arcs to each other using the one line, where the longest line I can draw from acute angle all the way up to the opposite acute angle. That would be the longest line I can draw. Where that point cuts the arc, that's the point I'm going to be using to join exactly that same line, cutting the arc in the back face. I'm going to use my trim tool, trim away the extra portion that I will not see that is in the back end of the shape. I'm going to use my line tool from here to here. Let's try that again. From there to there. And I'm going to be finishing off by putting my compass point on the intersection point, taking it to the parameter where it's going to be ending off, clicking, and simply drawing and finishing up my drawing. There we go. We know that those points are coming together, and let's compare the two shapes. There we go. Right, that's done. I'm going to be carrying on with number 3 in part 2 of worksheet 2. Thank you for listening to this recording.